We're celebrating an anniversary here at WGN tonight, the 30th year of the Bozo Show.
The original Bozo circus started in Los Angeles in 1949. You remember that, don't you?
Huh, not quite.
But in 1961, the clown with the big red nose and the wild red hair moved here to WGN.
Now, since then, Bozo and his friends have put smiles on the faces of children all over the country. You may be one of them. Tonight in our For Kids' Sake report, a look back at a television institution.
And now, if you will, give me a loud answer to this question. Who's your favorite clown?
Bob Bell would answer.
Hey, that's me!
There's a lot of history behind that red nose and a cast of characters that's helped make Bozo's Circus a part of growing up for the last 30 years. The ringmaster, Oliver O'Oliver, Sandy the mute clown, Cookie, Wizzo, and even the hip Professor Andy.
They're different people. And children kind of like that. Hey, I could get by with that.
Unbelievable people. To have them all working at one station at one time, absolutely unbelievable. That's one of the reasons why it was such a great success.
These folks are also key to the success of the Bozo Show. The loyal fans who, in some cases, have waited a lifetime to meet the clown with the red nose.
I came home every day at lunchtime to watch Bozo and the grand prize game before I headed back after lunch.
But did you ever make it down to see the show? Is this your first time?
This is my first time. I waited 30 years.
In fact, Palmer was born the day the show went on the air. Thanks to a contest held for the 30th anniversary special, he finally got his shot at the grand prize game. Besides the games and the goofing around on and off camera, the show has featured everything from dancing scarecrows to trapeze acts, circus animals, and those messy cream pies. Of course, Bozo is still clowning his way into the hearts of children all over the country. What do you think about Bozo? What do you like about him?
Everything, mostly.
This is not a manufactured show. It's not edited. It's not everything done just absolutely perfect. We're there with warts and all. And I think that people understand the humanity of that, and they enjoy it.
Guess what? Robin put the wrong sign up in front, so I don't know what the devil I'm saying.
How would you describe your show, Bozo?
Well, the Bozo Show, I think, is a Chicago institution. And who better for being in an institution than someone like me?
The people behind the scenes seem to feel the same way. The directors, the stagehands, and the camera people. We caught this veteran photographer off guard, but he sums up the feeling pretty well.
There's a lot of nostalgia. I get kind of choked up over it because it brings back many fond memories. Gosh, what a surprise this is. It's just that it's nice to see some people that I've known for nearly 30 years, was a part of the show, and some great memories.
What has it got? Longevity built in.
Now, to give you an example of the Bozo Show's popularity, this is no surprise to you, there are people who waited up to 10 years to get tickets to the show, and I bet nobody's ever asked you for tickets.
Oh, yeah, every other day. I can remember one of my fondest memories when Bob Bell's last day was here. I was able to appear on the Bozo Show, and they had a big pie fight, something I've always wanted to do, and it ended up just spreading all over the building, people throwing pies all upstairs.
I didn't know you liked pies. I could have brought you one back from today's show.
Yeah, I would have gotten it the wrong way, possibly. Well,
his home in Kimberling City, Missouri. He'd suffered from liver cancer. He was 72. Ned Locke was born in Minneapolis on Christmas Day in 1919. He started acting in his childhood years and later took up broadcasting at station WHO in Des Moines. He came to Chicago first with NBC and later with WGN Channel 9, where he would remain until his retirement in 1976.
Ringmaster Ned, that's me, and a cast of thousands.
He was best known as Mr. Ned, the jovial ringmaster of the Bozo Show. But that was not Ned Locke's first assignment at WGN-TV. He came to Channel 9 in 1956 as Uncle Ned, joining Ted Uncle Bucky Ziegler and Dardanelle Aunt Dodie Hadley as hosts of Lunchtime Little Theater. It was a successful 4-year run that ended in 1960, when Locke took over as skipper of Paddleboat, another kid show on Channel 9. Cartoons were one big part of that show, but live animals were also frequent guests, and sometimes with disastrous results.
For instance, one time we had a 1,400-pound baby hippopotamus on the show, and the baby hippopotamus all but sunk the ship. It worked out very well, but you know, people were looking for ladders, and hey, how do I get up out of here? I don't want to be near the near this raging hippopotamus.
Yes, Big Top is on the air.
In 1961, Bozo the Clown came to Channel 9 to star on Bozo's Circus and the prime-time Big Top Show. With Bob Bell as Bozo, Ray Rayner as Oliver O. Oliver, and Don Sandberg as Sandy the Tramp, Ned Locke was the natural choice to be the ringmaster of the show. His, a mature voice of reason, trying to bring a measure of sanity to the antics of the clowns, and not having all that much success.
The format was loose, scripts were loose, and it was a real hack. But after a while, it worked out.
It worked out so well, in fact, that Ned Locke stayed with the Bozo Show for 16 seasons until his retirement in 1976.
Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the guy that started the grand prize game. Would you all please join me in welcoming Ringmaster Ned? Yay!
In September of 1991, Ned Locke returned to make a guest appearance on the 30th anniversary of the Bozo Show on Channel 9 and showed he'd lost none of his old form.
And now it's time to play our grand prize game.
A few years earlier, Mr. Ned had joined Bob Bozo Bell on the left and Don Sandy the Tramp Sandberg in the middle to look back on their years with the show, a show that Ned Locke was proud had never been phony.
We didn't attempt to really and truly educate, but instead entertain. Figure kids need a break in their day like everybody else, you know, and give them a break. I know it was an honest effort. There wasn't any cover-up. There just wasn't any phoniness. And I think that will endure.
That will endure, and so will the memories of the warmth, professionalism, and gentle good humor of Mr. Ned Locke.
WGN is literally being flooded with messages from viewers today expressing their sympathies over the death of Bob Bell. Bob, of course, was the original Bozo the Clown.
One fan writes, "Thank you, Bob, for giving all of us kids something to laugh at, to marvel at, to tell all our friends that I saw Bozo."
Bob Bell was a part of the WGN family since 1959. He died yesterday after a prolonged illness. He was 75 years old.
Who better now to remember Bob than Joey Dioria, our current Bozo the Clown.
Bozo's Circus is on the air.
In the 35 years the show's been playing, only 2 performers have appeared as Bozo. That's some kind of record. The first was Bob Bell. Bell started in broadcasting and radio. After working at stations in Grand Rapids and Indianapolis, Bob moved to Cincinnati, where he teamed up with Wally Phillips on a television show. He played a wide variety of characters, including Max the chef, a goofy movie director, an undertaker, and a nervous film librarian. Bob and Wally came to WGN television in 1956, and soon Bob was playing a number of characters, including the manager of the Odeon Theater, Andy Starr. But his biggest role came when he put on the orange wig, the red nose, and the red suit of Bozo the Clown. Bob and his merry band of clowns slam-banged their way through the noon hour to the delight of thousands of Chicago area kids.
And she's still there, fast asleep.
Yeah, it's a lot of pies. What in the world am I going to do with all these pies?
We don't know.
Bob Bell retired in 1984. His last show was a sentimental time for fans and friends.
I've just determined that this is a time in my life when I would like to do something different.
Those who grew up on lunches of peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and glasses of milk at noon never forgot him.
He's silly. I like Bozo Bozo's shoes because they flop everywhere.
I like Bozo because his hair.
A year ago, Bob received the finest recognition possible. He was inducted into the Clown Hall of Fame. Over 300 people gathered together to join in saluting Bob for his great performances as WGN Television's Bozo the Clown.
There isn't enough I can say about Bob and his fine performances throughout the years. And there's a lot of Bob's friends here from WGN tonight. A few have already been introduced. And Bob, we all love you. Thank you for being you.
So my thanks to WGN for their generosity and for their tolerance of me and having faith enough in what I had to contribute to spend the money and keep the circus on the air as long as it has been.
Bob Bell worked with us here for more than 20 years. He'll be missed. Anyone that would like to send their condolences can do so on our website. It's at WGNTV.com. Tom Skilling, you knew him very well.
Well, you know, he's just a genuinely nice man, very approachable, unassuming. I mean, you know, not condescending when he talked to you. He didn't have a star complex. He was just a nice man. I remember coming into this building back in 1978 when I started here, and he would get into his Bozo outfit early because it took an hour to prepare, you know, the makeup and so forth. Sure. And he also did morning booth announcements. These are the announcements you see over the slides. So he would read a series of news headlines in the morning about 7:25. And you could walk down the hall upstairs and you look in the studio and here's Bozo reading about what the president is doing today and all the rest. I thought, you know, if you'd had a camera and taken a picture of that, that would be a classic shot. But he was a very nice man, and it's a shame he suffered from illness in his final years as well.
All right.
We miss him.
All right. Regarding the snowstorm, perhaps as much as 7 inches tonight.
Well,
for 23 years, Bob Bell was the man behind the makeup, the man behind Bozo the Clown. Under Bell's leadership, Bozo became the most successful kids show in Chicago history.
Bozo was bright, he was funny, he was dynamic, he's brilliant, and it was Bob Bell.
Bob Bell began his broadcasting career in his hometown of Flint, Michigan. His first job was as an announcer for WMRP radio. By 1956, he was on WLWT in Cincinnati, working as the sidekick for a guy named Walt Phillips, now known to millions as Wally. The two joined WGN Radio 3 years later. Phillips stayed in radio while Bell moved on to TV. And the rest, as they say, is history.
And now, if you will, give me a loud answer to this question. Who's your favorite clown?
Hey, that's me!
With characters including Cookie the Clown, Ringmaster Ned, and Oliver O'Oliver, Bell took center stage as Bozo with his cast of thousands.
Bob was probably one of the finest comedic character actors in the business. It was amazing to watch him. He was a guy that looked like a businessman, an insurance executive, or a banker. And when he got into makeup, the transformation was unbelievable.
In addition to his duties as Chicago's top clown, Bob Bell kept his job as an announcer at WGN. He got up early in the morning to bring viewers news.
Police have a suspect in custody.
And weather.
Hi, gang. This is Bozo with the weather forecast. Hey, it's going to be windy today with some rain and drizzle.
Bob Bell once said he worked 2 jobs because there was always a chance of losing one. In broadcasting, he retired in 1984, but he left a legacy of laughter. And now the clown who always said goodbye to each of his fans after the show says goodbye to all of us.
If you were a child growing up in Chicago from the late 50s through the early 80s, chances are some of your earliest and fondest TV memories were of Bob Bell's Bozo. Tonight, his fans and colleagues look back.
Now, back to the Bozo Super Sunday Show.
The kids' comedy show Bob Bell helped to make a Chicago institution was alive with excitement today, just as it's been throughout nearly 4 decades. While the youngsters cheered with delight, their parents had lost a part of their youth.
I was on a show.
You were on
I was on the show 23 years ago.
I have fond memories of him as a child.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to hear that he passed today.
Sure.
I watched Bozo every morning, early in the morning before I go to school, and Bob Bell was just a part of that.
Baby boomers and Gen Xers have no shortage of entertainment icons of the sort that helped to shape their youth. And for those who grew up in Chicago, few are as indelible as the character whose persona was Bozo. In a 1988 interview, Bob Bell described the Bozo show as escapism for kids, nothing more.
That's all it was ever intended to be. And we didn't do any ABCs and color charts or anything like that. We was down there and let her rip. And if it came out funny, that's great. And if it didn't, we'll try it tomorrow.
It was a time when most all TV production was live, and one of Bell's sidekicks, Bozo, the magician, remembers...
He was quick, he was fast with lines. I remember one time I magically produced a bird, and the bird dropped on me. Yeah. And he says, you know, Wiz, it doesn't take a bird long to spot a friend.
And just last year, in what is perhaps the greatest tribute to his talent, Bob Bell was inducted into the Clown Hall of Fame, a place he had already firmly established in the hearts of a generation of Chicagoans.
You can read more about Bob Bell's career on our website at www.WGNTV.com. And later on tonight, we're going to sit down with Bob Bell's producer, Al Hall, to talk about some of his memories. Our other big story tonight, we told you about Bob Bell passing away. Chicago's original Bozo was 75 when he died after a long illness.
Joining us now is Al Hall, the longtime producer of Bozo. Such fond memories you must have of him. Tell us one of the favorites.
Two quick stories. First of all, on the first show we did, on the 11th of September in 1961, we didn't have a Bozo. 3 o'clock, it was a disaster, just awful. And I thought, oh, Brother Bill, here I am, I've been here for 2 weeks, they're going to fire me at the end of the week. About 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the producer of the show came to me and said, Bozo will be here with us tomorrow. I said, you mean we have a Bozo? He said, yeah. I said, where was he today? And I said, well, budget and all that stuff. The next day, Bob Bell was on the show as Bozo. It was the difference of day and night. When he hit the screen, there was a light. There was an illumination that just filled the studio and went right out to home. It was tremendous. Now, a lot of people say, what kind of a guy was he? Well, he was a funny guy. He was a very talented, funny guy. And I'll tell you how I first found, oh, here we go with, this is the takeoff on the old Ernie Kovacs Nairobi Trio thing. It wasn't funny, but it lasted a long time. One thing about Bob, and it's a story that I best can, I think, typify his sense of humor. We were doing the show one day, and Ned Locke, the guy in the top hat there, needed to have Bozo come on the screen because it was part of the bit. Well, Bozo wasn't there. So he called out, oh, Bozo, would you come over here, please? Nothing. Oh, Boz, come on over, will you, please? Nothing. Well, Ned was getting a little desperate at this time, so he said, hey, Boz, come on over here, the elephants are loose. Off in the distance, you heard this faint voice. Give him some kaopectate. Well, there was a long pause, and then absolute burst of laughter from everybody. And I was in the control room, and I fell down on the desk crying.
We've lost a good friend.
Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing it.
Thanks so much.
My pleasure.